Hello and welcome to Eurosport for coverage of round 7 of the PPG IndyCar World Series from Portland, Oregon.
In the blue shirt, Robert Stone.
Once again, this is Ben Evans in the commentary box, and I've been joined by IndyCar expert, race engineer Robin Hurd, who was responsible for winning this race 4 times in the mid-80s, I believe. Robin, quite a successful run of races for you here at Portland.
Yes, it was always a kind race to us, except in 1984. Which happened to be Father's Day, and I think we'll find this race is going to be a fuel consumption race, and Michael was driving one of our cars, and he had a comfortable lead going into the last lap and ran out of fuel on the last corner, coasted to the finishing line, and his father overtook him, and his father was driving for the opposition, and his father said it was the only Father's Day present that Michael had ever given him.
There we have a look at the circuit. It's 102 laps of this 1.95 mile track. 9 turns. It's a sort of circuit that Nigel Mansell knows well, of course. It's a normal racetrack that he's used to. It's not an oval track. And Mansell it is who took the pole position after a fairly frantic second qualifying session. Fittipaldi had been fastest after the first session on Friday, but Mansell just taking that pole position to take his 3rd pole of the season so far. And in fact, he's taken pole on all the road course events so far this season, upholding the honour. He didn't beat Fittipaldi's existing record for qualifying. Fittipaldi was on pole here last year, so Mansell just outside that time, but Fittipaldi alongside him on the front row, and that could be interesting. We had the 2 of them on the front row for the last race at Detroit, and we had quite a lot of confusion at the start of that race and a lot of unhappy people after the Detroit race, particularly in the Penske team when Fittipaldi got penalised for jumping the start. So we could be in for a repeat, but we'll have to wait and see. Robin, this race is certainly an important race in the calendar, but one of the important things about the race itself is they're going to have to watch the fuel consumption very, very carefully, aren't they?
Yes, as I said, traditionally fuel consumption is very important. You're only allowed a certain amount of fuel, 1.8 miles per gallon. The Fords can just do it using full power for the whole race. The race is 102 laps, and it's 3 runs of 34 laps. Speaking to Jim McGee, who is Nigel Mansell's team manager, who very kindly rang us up in the middle of the night to give us the briefing for Nigel's race, he said they may be able to stretch the first round to 35 laps, if they're lucky 36, but really they're hoping for a few yellow flags and get a few extra laps that way, and therefore take the tightness off the fuel consumption.
So the Chevrolets could be struggling a little bit in terms of fuel consumption. We've seen that the Chevrolet engine now seems to have the power, but maybe not able to produce that power if we don't have any yellow flags.
Yes, there are 7 Chevrolets in the first 10, as indeed there are 4 Penske's in the first 6. The Chevrolets come on in leaps and bounds. I'm delighted to see them working so hard on their Indy effort, because it can only be to the detriment of their F1 effort, which is far too good for our comfort. They've basically increased the number of revs they can run the engine to, which of course has given more power, and of course unfortunately has increased the fuel consumption. The Ford contingent are of the opinion that they'll have to back off and not be able to use full power for the whole race.
Right, well, we're just looking at the front row of the grid at the moment. Emerson Fittipaldi on the outside of that front row of the grid. Very, very close times. He was just over a 1/10 of a second slower than Mansell in qualifying, the second qualifying session. Mansell did a 60.902, Fittipaldi on a 61.007. So the battle on again between these two. A lot of talk in the weeks since Detroit 2 weeks ago, when they had that problem at the start, when Fittipaldi actually crossed the line first and was penalised with a stop-and-go penalty, which effectively cost him the race in many ways. He came in and actually went off in trying to retake the ground that he'd lost in that stop-and-go. Robin, this start procedure is an interesting one. What do you think we're going to see today?
I think it can be very interesting, actually. Nigel has had some fairly strong words to say to the kart organisation, and rightly so, because they had 2 rules. Firstly, that the race starts when the green flag is waved, and that secondly, that the race starts when the pole position man is in the lead. But the green flag was waved when the pole position man wasn't in the lead, and so you have 2 mutually contradictory rules. Of course, in the end, it worked in Nigel's favour, but this has been sorted out for this race, and I'm sure you'll see the green flag waved when Nigel is in the lead. Now, there is a trick you can pull here, and I must confess that I've been guilty of it in the past. is that you can mess up the start and cause a yellow flag to be waved instead of a green, so that the first 1, 2 or even 3 laps of the race, by not being able to get a clean start, you actually run under a yellow. And this, under a yellow condition, you use only about half the fuel. So if, say, you lose, you have 3 bad laps to start with, and you start 3 laps late, they still count for the race, but you've gained 1.5 laps worth of fuel. And for the Chevrolet, this can be very important. So it'll be quite interesting to see whether Emma pulls a trick there and be surprised. I would.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how the start goes this time. They had a driver's briefing this morning, and it was certainly going to be discussed in detail during that driver's briefing. Wally Dallenbach is the chief starter for the IndyCar racing, and he took quite a lot of flack from the last race at Detroit. And so hopefully he's going to have everything in order, and we'll have to wait and see. Of course, normally if a misstart is declared, then the yellow flags do come out. I think the problem partly at Detroit was the fact that no yellow flags came out when the start went slightly wrong. The race was on, and of course at that point all they could do was inflict a stop-and-go penalty to Fittipaldi, which effectively put him right out of the running. There we're just looking at Paul Tracy, and Tracy is on the second row alongside Stefan Johansson. And Robin, Stefan is going very well again this weekend.
Fabulous. Stefan drove for me in Formula 3 in the late 70s, and then he went on to a great Formula 1 career with Ferrari and McLaren, and for a variety of reasons, racing and personal, it all went slightly wrong. And he's gone over to the States, and he's a new man. You can see it, visibly, it's visible. And he's got his act together. He's going extremely quickly. And in the last race in Detroit, he was as quick as Nigel.
That's right. He was pushing Mansell very, very hard during that race, and actually crashed when trying to get past him. He tried to overtake, saw that there were yellow flags, tried to duck in behind. They ended up actually making contact. Mansell got a puncture in the course of that, and Johansson ended up hitting Farby's car, so that was a bit of a disaster. And in fact, although Johansson's had some very good qualifying runs recently, he still really hasn't got many points on the board. He's only scored 3 points in all of the races so far, so he really needs to get a good dose of points here at Portland this afternoon to try and put him somewhere further up in the championship. Once again, we're just having another little look at the circuit there. There are overtaking opportunities here. We can see that chicane just after the start-finish line, and Robin, that could cause a bit of fun in the particularly on the first lap, in fact, as they all try and funnel through that chicane.
Yes, traditionally Portland doesn't have too many problems of the sort that we saw in Detroit and in Milwaukee. The difficulty is that the circuit is not used very much, and it's therefore very dirty, and it means that you get one line which has plenty of grip, and if you go off that line, which you need to do to try and overtake, you lose your grip. And several people have tried to overtake into the chicane, gone onto what we call the marbles, lost grip and gone flying straight over the chicane. But generally it doesn't seem to mess up the race too much. And of course you can do the same at the end of the other straights. It always amazes me that it is quite easy to make relatively small modifications to circuits compared to what is done, what has been done, to make a number of overtaking positions on a racetrack. And I don't understand why circuits don't make such modifications.
Well, last year the race here at Portland was won by Michael Andretti, and that was in fact the first win for the Ford engine, and that was a notable win. Andretti went on to take 3 more wins last season, and certainly put the Ford Cosworth engine on the map, and it's the Ford engine that Nigel Mansell has powering him through that pole position, and also the car we were just looking at then, Robbie Gordon, also using the Ford power unit. So a big battle in prospect. We've had 5 winners in the 6 races in the IndyCar series so far, and it really is proving to be a very open championship. And of course, with Stefan Johansson up there in 3rd position, there could be the possibility of yet another winner. So we'll just have to wait and see. Well, 102 laps then of this Portland track. We've certainly got some good weather for it as well. That's great to see. And we'll have to see whether Newman Haas can get another win here at Portland to repeat their win so far this season. Rejoin us here on Eurosport in a few minutes for further coverage of the Portland IndyCar race.
5, 4,
Well, you rejoin us here on Eurosport for the 7th round of the PPG IndyCar World Series from Portland, Oregon. Oregon, the next state up from California on the western side of the United States. And in fact, an important month, June, for the city of Portland, as it's their Rose Festival. But this is another important point for Portland this week, because the 7th round of the PPG IndyCar World Series is here, and it's about to get underway. We're going to be seeing 3 pace laps, and then we'll see the cars come round to take the rolling start. The green flag will be waved, and this round will be underway. Mansell, of course, currently leading the championship at the moment by 4 points it is now. He gains an extra point for his pole position time. So he now has a 4-point advantage over Raul Boesel in second place. Mario Andretti, Mansell's teammate, is third in the championship. Emerson Fittipaldi fourth. Bobby Rahal fifth. And Ari Luyendyk is in sixth position. Well, there's a few other notable points about the grid this time round. And Robin, an excellent performance, first of all, from young Mark Smith, only 26 years old. He's running in last year's Penske, the PC92. And he's put it up there in 6th place on the grid.
Yes, a couple of points. Firstly, he is from Oregon. His father owns Evergreen Airways and has recently bought the Spruce Goose, which will mean a lot to aviation enthusiasts. But most important, he's got a decent engineer now. He's got Gordon Coppock, who's won a few Indy races in his time engineering his car, and I'm sure that's a lot of the reason for that improvement.
Next up on the grid in 7th place, the first of the Lola Chevys, is this time Teo Fabi. Now that's a good performance, because the Pennzoil Special hasn't been going so well this year, so they'll no doubt be pleased with that.
It's very good, because he's the first Lola after the 2 Haas Newman Lolas. But we note that it's 1.2 seconds third in Nigel.
Well, the other notable performances from Mike Groff, who's qualified 12th in the Rahal Hogan, and that's ahead of his team leader Bobby Rahal in his Lola, so that's a bit of a surprise. We've also got some additions this time. Brian Till takes over the 99 car from Eddie Cheever, so we don't see Cheever out, but we do see Brian Till. Also in a similar way, Kevin Cogan has taken over the car that we've seen Adrian Fernandez out in recently. That's the 3rd entry for the Gallus International team. Another change around is we don't have Andrea Montemini, who put in such a superb performance to finish 4th at Detroit. His car has once again been taken over by David Kudrave, and Kudrave in the Andrea Moda Lola T92 with the Chevy A engine. So we're now going to pass over to our American commentary team.
Portland. On board with Danny Sullivan. That 37.2, which you see written on his steering wheel, I will explain that to you a little later on, but it's basically to do with the fuel. There you can see the clouds hovering over it in the north end of the track. Pardon me, the south end of the track, as they now turn west. See the crowds there.
And notice how in that festival chicane the surface is made out of concrete, and then they go back into asphalt, which again creates all sorts of headaches for all drivers here.
Should be their last pace lap. They should be forming up on the back stretch, trying to get side by side. Nigel said he was going to try and set the pace and keep everybody even, but he doesn't want to have any troubles as they did in Detroit last week. The other thing that's going to make this start very interesting, of course, is they do hold down into that tight right-hander where it narrows down, and where we've seen Michael Andretti do some great starts here.
And remember, we have the very same front line, first row, that we had in Detroit with all that history and baggage. Jim Swintal is, of course, a little bit smarter this time. He holds both the green and the yellow flag. He's the starter for the race.
Should see them settle up and square away. Nigel trying to get the debris and warm up those tires. There's the temperature for you, 64 degrees.
and little chance of showers, although we have had some sprinkles this morning. The skies are definitely clearing up, and again, that's going to wreak havoc with the rest of the race. These cars were set up with much colder readings this morning in expectation of rain.
There you see them going through turn 7 into turn 8 and then around a blind turn 9 where they track out up to the wall.
And now Mansell's not waiting on turn 9. He's taking the lead. Fittipaldi is tailing right behind him. Jim Suntal's ready. He's holding both flags. They come across, and it's a green flag.
Oh, I think there's going to be some controversy over that one, but we'll see. Cleanly into the chicane for the first 3. Robbie Gordon getting a little wide, late on the brakes. Oh, up on the curbing too. But it looks like all 29 cars are through safely.
And that very first turn through that festival set of turns is always the most critical, always the most confusing.
This race is going to be a race of fuel strategy. We expect them to make 2 stops today. Not normally very many full caution yellows here at Portland because they're able to take care of the incidents on the scene. Down the backstretch, 185 miles an hour going into that turn 7. Quick flick left, quick flick right, and then around the long right-hander, which is turn 9. Onto the drag strip. And by the end of this straightaway, heading down into the festival curves, they'll reach approximately 173 miles per hour in 6th gear.
There's no change in the top 8 as they complete the first of 102 laps. There's Stefan Johansson on that Penske car. Basically the same setup that the Marlboro Penske team has.
Stefan Johansson looking for his first good result of the year. He's had some quick times, he's qualified well, but he's not finished well at all this year.
Trying to finish his 3rd race of the season. Incredible to believe for such a great driver. There's Paul Tracy on 4th.
Currently Johansson only has 3 points. Paul Tracy, 10th in the point standings at the moment. 2 world champions leading the field.
And there's a definite different feel to this track than Detroit. There are more passing lanes. It's a lot quicker. The turns are very quick. It's a different race, and there aren't those walls that are so unforgiving. We've seen a lot of people come back from slips and shunts in this race. Paul Tracy in 4th, I mean.
There's a lot more runoff area here too, so you can afford to make a mistake and still get back on the track.
Look how cleanly Fittipaldi takes that first turn, which is actually turn 11. The way they've named these turns, even though they happen after the start-finish line, they've called them 10, 11, and 12 because the track was designed and known always to have only 9 turns. Now it really has 12.
Great track here. They run super bikes here, AMA super bikes. They also run drag races. The IMSA series comes here. A lot of local racing, club racing going on. And Lynn St. James, who's running this weekend, came and raced in a club race last weekend in a Toyota Atlantic just to give herself a feel for the track.
There's Mark Smith, the Oregon native. He keeps his position.
From McMinnville, Oregon, in 6th place, going over the curbing. That curbing there is one that you definitely have to run over. It's part of the race track. Even though it looks like yellow curbing, they all run over it.
And you'll notice those cars come, as you see Mark Smith in 6th place, come out of that 9 turn right into the straightaway, very, very close to that wall, scarily so.
Danny Sullivan right behind him. There you see the view from on board with Danny. He's been a lot more relaxed and chipper the last couple of days following that result in Detroit. It's taken the pressure off him quite a bit. And that is rain, I think we're seeing on the screen there. Although it looks too clear for rain, unless we're getting some fluid from Mark Smith's car. That 37.2 on his steering wheel, which we'll see later, that is there. It's a readout for Danny Sullivan. The fuel gauge in his car counts backwards. And if it's got to 37.2 before he comes around to pit lane, that means he needs to come in right away and refuel. If it's at 37.1, he can still do 1 more lap before having to come in. And that's just there to remind him he's supposed to check it down the backstretch at 6. well, which is called turn 6, which is really just a long curving straightaway, fastest part of the track.
Now we see the long shot from the end of that straightaway coming into those cones. Now,
good battle going on here between Sullivan and Robbie Gordon, and Alonso Jr. trying to get by Robbie Gordon.
And those drops that you saw on Danny Sullivan's helmet, that's a little bit of fluid. Now you see them now coming out of the 25 car of Mark Smith, and that's bad news for the young man.
It is, because Danny Sullivan has a radio, and he will radio into his pit, say, hey, the 25 car is leaking something, and then his crew will bring it up to the officials, and they'll black flag Mark Smith, and they'll bring him in and take a look at his car and see if he can repair it or make him do something before they let him back out again.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Sullivan is putting some daylight between him and Mark Smith. There's about a 1.5 second difference right now. Mark Smith about to be black flagged as he comes around the straightaway.
Well, he will have received the black flag along the backstretch there, so that he knows to come in. He'll get it one more time as he goes on the pit straight. You can see it coming out the back of the car there. So Mark Smith, who had a great start to this weekend, his best ever qualifying position, young guy. His father is the guy who bought the Spruce Goose, which used to be out in Long Beach. There you see the view from Nigel Mansell.
It's a great view because he's up in the front looking back at Emerson Fittipaldi, and in third place Stefan Johansson. Fittipaldi came in second last year in the same race, 8 seconds behind. And now you see the front 6 after 5 laps, and in just a couple of laps we should see Nigel Mansell begin to approach and get very close to some of the lap traffic. There's Danny Sullivan once again.
That fluid's not going to help him as far as his vision is concerned. Top 3 coming out of turn 9 onto the main straightaway. They're about the length of the straightaway away from Johnny Unser, who is currently at the back of the pack. Nigel Mansell, the silly season has started again here already. A lot of rumors going on about Nigel this weekend. There you see Mark Smith ailing it back towards the pit lane. Getting back to the mention of Nigel Mansell, this weekend he was supposed to sit down with Carl Haas and discuss next year. And I guess from what we've heard is they have not come upon an agreement for 1994. There's all sorts of great rumors running around about 1994.
Yes, indeed, and the Haas-Mansell conversation was going to take place this weekend. Mansell put pressure on Carl Haas by actually declaring that the newspapers here locally in Portland, that one of the things he wanted to accomplish this weekend is sit down with Carl Haas and thrash out what would be an agreement for next year.
As I say, Eddie Cheever is not here this weekend. He's got plans to set up his own team. Rumor has it Danny Sullivan is going to set up his own team. A lot of rumors about who's going where and what next year. But one thing that is not a rumor is the story about Chip Ganassi, Arie Luyendyk, and the Reynard team. There you have the aerial view. Mark Smith getting some mechanical attention. Looks like it could be a terminal problem.
It could be a fuel leak. It looked to me like a
Right, well, as we see Mark Smith in the pits there, that's a great shame. The local man put in such a strong performance in qualifying, Robin, but it does look as though the race is run for him.
Yes, it is a real shame, and especially being his home course. One thing that's obvious here, I mean, we use on road circuit. This is the first road circuit we've had this year.
Purpose built.
Yeah, exactly. And we're used to seeing Mansell disappear into the distance, but obviously this year he doesn't have the tremendous technological advantage that Frank Williams, Patrick Head, the 1.5 gave to him last year. Nevertheless, to make that even worse, it's a circuit where really driver skill is not paramount. The corners, the end we're coming to now, are all about 70 or 80 miles an hour. They're not particularly difficult either to drive or to set the car up for, and you've got 2 drag strips and a couple of wheels at the other end. It's, in many ways, they're actually quite like Montreal as a circuit. It's not particularly a test of the handling of the chassis or the driver. The engine is very important.
Well, we've just seen a change of place there as Robbie Gordon manages to get past Danny Sullivan. That little battle had been going on for a little while, and with Smith out of the equation, that puts Gordon up into 6th position now. So Gordon into 6th place. with Sullivan down to 7th place now. And so Robbie Gordon, the man who's certainly putting in a strong performance this season, his first full season of IndyCar racing. Interestingly enough, in the equivalent car last year, Ross Cheever made his IndyCar debut with the AJ Foyt team at this very circuit. So with Mansell leading from Fittipaldi and Johansson, we'll return with further coverage of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 in a moment.
Live.
Welcome back to coverage of the 7th round of the PPG IndyCar World Series here from Portland in Oregon. We're looking at the moment from Bobby Rahal's car, the Lola, of course, of Bobby Rahal. Rahal qualified down in 15th position, Robin, a bit disappointing for the reigning champion, and of course the fact that his other car was in front of him.
Yes, when Nigel's team manager rang up last night, he did say that Mr. Hogan, who had bought the two Lolas for a little change out of $1 million, was not best pleased by that, and in fact apparently went to Carl House and asked for his money back.
Well, we've got an interesting battle going on at the moment with Mansell being chased by Emerson Fittipaldi. There we are looking from the back of Mansell's car at Emerson Fittipaldi, just going past Marco Greco. We wondered if he was going to get in the way a little bit there, but he's moved out of the way, and so the two leaders are passed. Mansell still in front of Fittipaldi in 2nd place, but just look how close these two cars are together. Completely different cars, different engines. We've got the Lola Ford run by Newman Haas of Nigel Mansell, which by the way took their 50th pole position with this pole position here at Portland, the 50th pole for the team, so that was cause for celebration. And in behind him we've got the Penske Chevrolet of Emerson Fittipaldi, so a great battle going on between those two at the moment. Fittipaldi commenting that the 93 Penske is the best ever racing car he's ever driven, and when somebody like him says that,
I think so. I think Nick Guzzi and his men, Nigel Bennett and Jeff Ferris in particular, built a very good car. It stood out. I mean, any engineer can see this right from the start of the year. It's a first-class car, and well done for that.
Well, here we are with Danny Sullivan on car, the winner from the last round at Detroit, of course. Bit of a surprise win that. He's being chased once again by his teammate Alonso Jr. So as these two Gallus International teammates battle away, we'll rejoin our American team of commentators to keep us updated.
Sullivan not getting quite so high on that curbing. Rumour has it Danny is going to set up his own team next year. Rear view once again out of the back of Nigel Mansell's car. There was some discussion too about blocking tactics this weekend, as we've seen more blocking come into the sport, or the IndyCar series at least, and there's going to be more warnings given for it this weekend.
And of course the blocking comes in the form of Nigel Mansell.
Well, he's an expert at it.
He started teaching the fine art of blocking, certainly in Long Beach, when he taught that lesson to Alonso Jr. Alonso Jr. ended up in the wall and out of the race. And he's taught it to a couple of others, Stefan Johansson being another one. And of course,
coming up to overtake Lynn St. James, who I had told you last weekend ran here in part of the Rose Festival in a club race in a Toyota Atlantic to try and get used to the track. I don't know if it helped her that much or not. She's about to get overtaken by the three fastest guys on the track.
The festival turns is going to be very, very tricky now coming in, all three.
Well, Lynn's very...
Oh, he's has to block. Fittipaldi has to block his brakes. Block his tires and finally makes it through around St. James.
Move over, Lynn. Uh-oh, Stefan won't like that one. And now there's Tracy right up behind Stefan Johansson because he was held up a little bit by Lynn St. James. She saw them coming, but because obviously she went offline and stayed wide going into the right-hander, but at some point she has to turn in.
There's a definite now division. Only these four cars, Mansell, Fittipaldi, Johansson, and Tracy, within 3 seconds of each other. Andretti's now 6 seconds behind Tracy in 5th. So there's a big divide between these first four and the rest of the field.
Early stages of what is going to be a very taxing, tiring, and strategic race, especially as the fuel comes into play. There's question as to whether they have enough fuel to make this, because purely based on history of the fact that we very rarely get a full field caution here at Portland. We only had one last year for 5 laps. the reason we don't get full cautions or full course cautions is because they're able to deal with the problem on site, generally push the car off into a safe area or get it restarted and back out on the track. Danny Sullivan once again on board with him as Little Al goes with him past the back marker. Stephanie Johansson so far the quickest time of the day on the track. Nigel Mansell was asked whether he liked this bonus point system for getting the pole. He said, yeah, I love it. I've got 4 poles. I'm leading by 4 points. But what I'd really like to see is a bonus point paid for the guy who puts the fastest lap in. He said, because even if you have a crummy weekend and you're out of it and you're not going to score any regular points, then he said what you could do is you could whip back in the pit, make it entertaining for the crowd, put on 4 new tires and just go out there and just shoot for the best time, just to get that 1 point.
I think it was being slightly charitable, although he certainly can win that award. I think he meant that to also help and appease the other drivers as he's dominated the series since coming here from Formula One last year. Danny Sullivan being fouled and chased by his teammate, the Gallus team of Al Unser Jr.
The other thing, just getting back to the Nigel point too, in reality, if you're not running in the top point system anyway, there's something wrong with the car, so you're not going to be able to do a fastest lap anyway. But, you know, just throw a little entertainment there. Junior is all over the back of Danny Sullivan. These two have had their battles on the same team as we saw at Long Beach and we saw at Detroit.
And of course, after Detroit, Al Unser Jr. had very few good things to say about his teammate. He didn't even congratulate him, so there's a lot of tension between these two.
There still is a lot of tension between the crews. I spoke to Danny Sullivan's crew chief, so I understand you guys are pretty happy. He said, well, our half of the team is very happy to have doing it, but those guys over there, he said, well, they're not so chipper about the whole deal.
And now we see Paul Tracy also having a very interesting weekend. A lot of rumors. The silly season, as you mentioned, started early. Usually starts about 2/3 of the way into the season. Now it started very, very early. We're not even halfway through the season as we see Mansell go through that festival chicane very widely on turn 11. During practice, Mansell was going right through those curves on turns 10, 11, and 12. He's being a lot more careful with his tires this time.
There you can see his right tire working. You can see that line move across it as the weight changes and the pressure is put on that tire. Paul Tracy seems to have lost some ground too to our leaders a little bit.
And there's a spin. That's Arie Luyendyk. Arie Luyendyk, my oh my, he really had problems with that. Coming into the 10, he might have had a little bit of trouble getting past some lap cars, I believe.
He was 12th, but I believe he's now dropped down to 14th following that spin. Arie Luyendyk, the story there with that Chip Ganassi car, if we can just stay with that for a moment, is Adrian Reynard is going to come to IndyCar racing next year with the Chip Ganassi team.
As you see now, Mansell being chased by Fittipaldi, he had to lock his wheels to get into that chicane properly.
There goes
there's Mansell on the outside.
Now this is where we're going to see the blocking.
And he comes on the inside. Is there going to be any space here for 2?
Nope.
No. So that's the first attempt by Emmo, and an aggressive one at that. Really not characteristic of Emmo Fittipaldi.
This weekend, we were listening over the weekend to the in-car camera and the microphone. And during practice and qualifying, it just sounded like Nigel was having some gear selection problems. It sounded like he was having trouble, and particularly in that festival curve. I think maybe they were just struggling for a split second longer than he normally would to get it in gear, which gave Emmo that chance to pull up right behind him. But once Nigel had got the selection right and got his foot in it again, then Emmo wasn't able to do anything about it. Meantime, Johansson playing a waiting game at the back. Of course, he can just hover around there, give himself a little room, maybe surprise them both and do a run on both of them.
The interesting thing, of course, as we see now Roger Penske, the leader of that Marlboro Penske team, they're locking it as well. Now trying to get through Johnny Unser on the outside. There's no space. They both have to stop and still wait to get around Unser. But now Fittipaldi makes a move. On the outside, there's no space. There is no space. And finally, Mansell reasserts himself with Unser on the side.
Also, I think Emmo realized he was on the wrong side there because he was going to come up behind the slower Johnny Unser, so he had to back out of it.
So already, Fittipaldi making some very aggressive moves early in the race, which is not his characteristic. But he learned from last year. He stayed in second. He ended up 8 seconds behind winner Michael Andretti. He has to come to the front earlier in this race if he wants to win it.
Great view as they shoot out there onto turn 6, the backstretch. Emo looking down the outside there. Emo obviously feels he's got Nigel taken care of. It's just a matter of where he's going to do it and how.
And of course, there's a fourth car back there behind Johansson. That's Paul Tracy, who used that incident with Unser to catch up with the other three.
Great run between the top four here. They've now got about a 7 or 8 second lead over Mario Andretti, who is currently running in 5th.
And as a matter of fact, he's about to be.
Actually, our timing and scoring doesn't agree with what I just said, so we'll see. I think it's a lot more than 7 seconds now.
Mansell now putting a little bit of daylight. You see those little strips there? They've added concrete to the asphalt mix for more traction on the outside as they go around these turns.
This racetrack for the last 2 or 3 years has had a terrible reputation of tearing up very easily. And they're doing the best they can to get it into the best shape they can and keep it from tearing up. But when you run 3,000-pound Trans Am cars here, and then it rains, and then you send out any lights, and then it's hot and sunny. It was 87 degrees here on Friday.
Well, Mansell still out in front from Emerson Fittipaldi, but as they get into lapping the slower traffic, in fact that's Kevin Cogan I think they're going past there, so he's not going as well as we might have expected in the Gallows International entry. But Mansell certainly not having all his own way. Fittipaldi applying the pressure and very nearly finding a way past on a couple of occasions already, Robin. He's certainly looking to be the threatening man. Of course, it is important that he tries to get ahead. We've still got quite a way before the first round of pit stops, haven't we?
Yes, we reckon we're going to be having the pit stops in about 14 minutes. The one point to take note of here is the tyres. They're okay, but you've got to be a little bit careful with them. If you go really hard, they're going to start to go off at about 20 laps. We're on 20 laps now, and we may see that that's Emo and Nigel are going pretty hard on their tyres, and Stefan actually taking it very steadily and sensibly in the back. He may gain. The other interesting point here is a different philosophy on overtaking in Formula 1 and kart. And in Formula 1, basically, if you can put someone in a difficult position, you take every piece of advantage you can of it. In kart, there's a more gentlemanly philosophy, is that if someone's going to be in a difficult position, then you avoid it.
We've got to change around, sorry there Robin, we've got to change around. Tracy taking 3rd place away from Stefan Johansson as they went past Ross Bentley, and Johansson just seemed to lose out a little bit in that exchange as they tried to get past the slower car. Couldn't quite see why he slowed it down as much as he did, but Tracy certainly nipping through, taking advantage of that. So we've now got the 2 Works Penske cars running 2nd and 3rd on the road. Johansson in the Tony Bettenhausen Penske running in 4th. So the Penskes versus 1 Lola at the moment. Mansell's up holding on. Here we have that again as we see them coming down to lap Ross Bentley. Mansell gets through quite easily. Fittipaldi struggles a little bit to get round. It's very tricky for 2 cars to get side by side. And there, Johansson backing off to try and avoid hitting Fittipaldi. Tracy nipped through. So a change around for 3rd place. The 2 Penskes running 2nd and 3rd. Mansell still out in front. Rejoin us in a moment. Welcome back to coverage of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 from Portland, Oregon. Nigel Mansell still leads after 25 laps from Emerson Fittipaldi. Paul Tracy up into 3rd position now, ahead of Stefan Johansson. Johansson losing out in that little incident while they were lapping Ross Bentley. Mario Andretti still holding on to 5th position. Then it's Robbie Gordon, Danny Sullivan and Alonso Jr. Where we can see that's the car of Kevin Cogan just being pushed away. We believe that it was cylinder head gasket failure that took him out of the race, so he's out of it, which is a great shame. But we now look on board. Now there's an interesting shot, Robin. We can see the front push rod of the front suspension there working away and lapping up some of the bumps that are on this circuit.
Yes, it's very interesting. This is quite a bumpy circuit, but it's not one in which the bumps actually affect the performance. Usually the bumps cause more grief to the drivers than they do to the cars, and you have to do quite a job of persuasion to get the drivers to ignore them when it is no damage to the performance. And certainly this was the case with the 2 Newman Haas cars. They really were hurting quite badly over the bumps. They lifted them.
Well, there's the car we were looking from. That's Scott Brayton in the Amway-sponsored car. Scott's running a little way down the order at the moment. As you can see, his best ever finish at Portland was a 5th in '87. He's a bit more now of an oval specialist than he is a road course man, and so not one of the fastest that we see on the road course, but nevertheless we are getting some excellent pictures from that car, and we can get a really good view of this track. As we said earlier, the first purpose-built racetrack that the cars have visited this season. They've been on various road courses where they've been on street circuits or in the roads in the park, as at Detroit and Belle Isle Park last time out. But let's look at this battle for the lead, because it's still on. Mansell holding a tight line into that end corner of the festival corner. Mansell's off. Mansell locks up and goes straight on. He lost it under braking there, and he's already waving at the marshals to get the cone out of the way. He was waving at them before it even stopped. So Mansell, it is down the escape road. He manages to rejoin. Now then, that's interesting, Robin. What do you reckon we'll see now? He's rejoined. He obviously did lose a lot of time there, but we're going to see him come in, a stop and go perhaps?
Maybe. I've seen that happen here before, and I've seen two different penalties applied, i.e. stop and go penalty and no penalty at all. In the sense, the fact that he obviously lost a lot will probably mean that they'll take a fairly light view of it.
Well, with Emerson Fittipaldi now taking the lead, let's rejoin our team in America to find out the latest information.
Just coming in too hot, trying to defend that lead position, which Emerson Fittipaldi now inherits.
Fittipaldi looking for his second win this season and the third for his team. Keeps on now lapping cars or lap traffic.
We have 3 Penske chassis Chevy C combinations in the top 3 between Fittipaldi, Tracy, Stephanie Johansson. Then we have 3 Lola Ford combinations of Nigel Mansell, Mario Andretti and Robbie Gordon, filling out 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th positions.
As Fittipaldi comes up right behind Ira Matsushita of the Derek Walker team, we should let you know also that Nigel Mansell now is 8.5 seconds behind Fittipaldi. Here's a replay from the inside of Mansell's car.
And you can see just get the back end comes out on him. Then he locks up afterwards. Comes to a halt pretty quickly in the runoff area. The Indy cars are the only guys who use this chicane. The other cars that normally run here, they don't have this. They just run straight down that main straightaway.
There's Nigel in 4th place, 8.36 seconds behind Emerson Fittipaldi.
I don't know how much damage he's done to his tires, but we're getting pretty close to the first round of pit stops anyway.
Indeed, that fuel window, 32 to 35 laps. They're in lap 29, about to complete lap 30 at this point. Here's the inside view of Nigel Mansell. Oh, he's correcting a lot. And notice also, he's now getting sloppier and getting on these curves. If you want to win this race and keep your tires, you don't want to do that.
Well, the reason he's doing that is because he's lost his tires. They haven't got the grip that they had, and he's sliding around a lot more than he was. Of course, the whole handling of the car has completely changed since they started with 40 gallons, now down to about 7. The weight has changed. The brakes, of course, have totally changed. They seem having to correct a little bit as it comes around 9.
He's got to be very careful coming out of 9 with that wall coming at him. He knows a lot about walls by now.
In 6th gear, going down. Here you see him go through the gears. Nigel taking this in about 2nd. Slowly round. Our running order after 30 of 102 laps.
That's right. You can see in the background that rain is falling in the background in this part of the Northwest, that we see the front runners in this race. 29 cars started. We already have 3 officially out of this race. But here's the leader. That's Emerson Fittipaldi up front. And apparently he's learned the lesson since last year as he tries to overtake now Scott Brayton.
Now coming up on the quicker of the back markers, which makes it tougher to pass. And they are supposed to be gentlemen and wave them by. Because sometimes the back markers are all fighting for positions too.
And there's Olivier Grouillard that's blocking the way of Tracy in the background. He's trying to pass.
can see the view from on board Scott Brayton as Emerson gets past him. A little bit of a twitch from Emo. It looks like this rain that you see that falling in the background is really going to play an interesting role in this, because they're going to make their pit stops in the next lap or 2 laps, and they're going to have to decide, well, obviously they're going to go out in slicks, we're going to have to stop again pretty much right away if that rain moves in any quicker. It will also unfortunately affect our coverage a little bit with the helicopters being up in the sky for the on camera or in-car camera photos.
As you see the clouds covering up this racetrack, you see the front runner, Emerson Fittipaldi, going through 7, 8, and eventually the number 9 turn into the straightaway.
Emerson Fittipaldi probably going to make his pit stop next time round. Paul Tracy is making his pit stop right now. So is Stefan Johansson. Let's see what happens here. He's obviously going to change all 4. 40 gallons of fuel going in. Should take about 16 seconds.
Let's see if they make any adjustments to wings.
No, didn't make any kind of chassis setup adjustments. Paul Tracy off and away. Stefan Johansson taking a little longer, though. The front jack doesn't seem to be working properly, so they're having to lift the car up to get the tires off and on the front. That's a very costly pit stop for Stefan Johansson. These guys have had some real bad luck. And it looks like he has slicks on. I thought maybe he'd gambled and put wet tires on. There's
Bobby Rahal exiting the pits. He's also making his pit stops. So we have Rahal, we have Johansson, we have Tracy, and now we have the Fittipaldi team and the crew waiting for him, and here he comes.
This camera perched atop looks like a clothesline. Or a fishing pole. It's on the end of a pole. Not taking on any jungle juice for himself. Emo back out underway. There is Nigel Mansell making his pit stop. Emo back out. The blend in line about 120 feet out. There's Danny Sullivan. A junior cutting right across the nose of Emerson Fittipaldi.
And that is something we should remind you, that coming out of these pit lanes with cold tires and coming into the flow of traffic that's really stopping after going 310 kilometers per hour, that makes this set of turns always exciting and always very, very treacherous.
See how much battering these drivers take. You see Nigel's head booming around there. I think that was also a booming piece of lightning we just saw. Mansell's pit stop taking about 15.5 seconds to take place. They've got to get some heat in those tires, and there's our new leader, Mario Andretti.
Coming into the pits, of course, losing that leadership position. Behind him is Robbie Gordon as well, as Coodgrave decides to stay on the track.
There you see Teo Fabi going back out onto the racetrack. Let's watch Mario pull in as they execute their pit stop. Once again, changing all 4. Taking on about 40 gallons. Trying to squeeze in as much as they can. A little squiffy coming out. Oh, there's Olivier Guillard.
His purpose, the reason why he did that, he wanted to get ahead of Robbie Gordon coming out of the pits, and Gordon's not very happy.
Gordon should try the old Tracy move around the outside of the chicane there as Mario's held up. I think we're going to see some severe rain here shortly, which is going to make for more pit stops, and these IndyCar races certainly can be won in pit lane. The Rahal team, probably one of the best pit crews out there.
Here's Emerson Fittipaldi about to overtake his countryman once again, Marco Greco. There goes number 6, that Dirt Devil car. That's Mario Andretti, is having his best season in a long time, trying to pass Olivier Guillard, the French Formula 3 champion. And of course, Mario is chased by Robbie Gordon.
Some rumors rolling around this weekend that Mario may set up his own racing team next year, may step down to retirement, and may have his young son Michael drive for him. But as I say, rumors. Danny Sullivan his first pit stop. Cleanly away out of the pits. Visor down. Sounds like he gets some terrible wheel spin going down pit lane. Robbie Gordon getting past Stefan Johansson.
And climbing all over that curve in turn 11, going to turn 12, and onto the rest of what would have been a long straightaway. Sullivan coming up to speed.
Heading into turn 1.
So after pit stops, we have Fittipaldi up front with a 4-second lead over Paul Tracy. Nigel Mansell has fallen 14 seconds behind Fittipaldi. That is a considerable gap.
Behind Mansell is this man right here, Danny Sullivan, followed by Mario Andretti, Robbie Gordon, Stefan Johansson, Alan Jr., Raul Bursell, and Bobby Rahal.
As Lynn St. James with that Nike number 90, Nike, of course, being based in Beaverton, Oregon, right outside of Portland. It's a very important race for her and for her sponsors. She is trailing badly, however. Right now, she's on 23rd position.
Saw the speed limit sign posted there, 80 miles an hour in pit lane this weekend. They'll allow them a little fluctuation, possibly up to about 85 miles an hour.
We do have rain. It's coming from the west, which is the way rain falls in this part of the Northwest, always coming in from west to east, and it is a very, very serious storm coming this way. It will be very interesting. Fittipaldi, very well known for his skill driving under rain.
And the halfway mark would be 51 laps.
So the situation certainly has changed around a little bit now. We've had our first round of pit stops. Now then, Robin, a few differences in when they came into the pits there. Now, do you think that could be critical for the latter part of the race?
Could be. It's interesting that Tracy came in quite early. Unfortunately, we weren't given the full information, but it was either 1 or 2 laps before third distance. Emo came in either 1 lap beforehand or on it, but at the same time as Mansell. Mario was 1 over third distance, so he's comfortable. And Sullivan, interestingly, in the Chevy, was 2 over, 2 laps to the good. On the other hand, it may all go up in the air with this wet weather.
It may well do. Well, there's Stefan Johansson, and tragically, it looks like, oh dear, and Johansson trying to slow down and get out of everybody's way, and almost coming a cropper there as he comes back into the pit lane. It all went wrong on his first pit stop. He'd been going so well up to then. They had some sort of problem with the front jacks, as we saw, and so Johansson's been struggling ever since. So I don't know quite what the problem is. Here he comes into the pits. Let's see if we can identify anything. There's Tony Bettenhausen in the pit lane and being asked what the problem is, but we don't actually have any news exactly what's troubling them. They're actually taking the engine cover off by the looks of things. So it looks as though Johansson's race is run. Yet another qualifying performance that is not to be backed up by a race result. So that's a great shame. There we can see the position after 38 laps. Fittipaldi leading Tracy, Mansell, Andretti, Gordon and Alonso Jr. now up into the top 6. So Alonso, the man who never qualifies particularly well, but always races very, very strongly, is gradually working his way up there. And we'll have to keep an eye on him, particularly if it starts to rain any heavier. So it's certainly shaping up for an exciting race. Rejoin us in just a moment's time. Well, welcome back to Eurosport's coverage of this 7th round of the IndyCar World Series, and it's certainly getting pretty exciting with the clouds really coming over from the west now. It doesn't look quite so dark in this shot, but over the back part of the circuit is really getting very, very dark indeed, and the prospects for very, very heavy rainfall can't be very far away. There you can see a great shot from Mansell's car as they go towards the clouds. We can see Mansell wiping his helmet and wiping the visor, so obviously rain is falling. Difficult to see at the moment, but this is certainly going to change the complexion of the race. Mansell currently running in 3rd place after locking up and sliding wide, and Fittipaldi now leading from his teammate Paul Tracy in 2nd place. There we can see, in fact, a bit of rain on our camera screen. And so Mansell holding on to 3rd, Mario Andretti, his teammate, in 4th position. In 5th place it's Robbie Gordon, and 6th place it's Alonso Jr.
It's interesting with Al Jr. I mean, most people in kart win as many races as they have pole positions, or very similar. Al Jr., as I said previously, is not the best test driver, he's not the best qualifier, He's had 3 pole positions and he's won 16 races. And here he is again, he's up for 6th, and you know, who knows where he's going to be at the end of the race.
Mansell then out in 3rd place at the moment, trying to chase the 2 Penske's, and well, he's going to be trying to read the conditions, as are all the drivers at the moment. It looks pretty much as though the circuit is looking pretty dry at the moment. There's no need to come in for changing to wets at this stage. He's now got Robbie Gordon there right in behind him, and in fact we're looking at Mario Andretti there, Mario Andretti, with Gordon tucked in behind Alonso Jr. just in behind him. So these 3 having a good little battle. Andretti currently in 4th position, Gordon in 5th, Alonso Jr. in 6th place. So this is the battle for 4th place. Mario Andretti holding off the young 24-year-old Californian at the moment, with Alonso tucked in just behind. So prospect for a good race still. Let's rejoin the American team.
The first rain session we've run this year.
We had some rain earlier before the race in Australia. Actually had a typhoon, but no rain since.
And once again, this race sticking to history, no yellow flags yet.
Last year they had 1 yellow flag, but it was a very small incident with Ray Hall's twist and turn. Didn't take long to get him back on the track.
And look at all that rubber on the right-hand side of the TV screen. That's all the marbles, as they call it. Basically rubber balls that's being thrown off these tires.
Now, Mario has a tricky situation. He wants to hold back these 2 very aggressive drivers, but ahead of him is Scott Braden. He has to worry about getting past him.
That's a Lola Ford, and then Junior in the Chevy, Lola.
Gordon shows his nose. He's right behind Mario, and Unser Jr. is dangerously close to Gordon. In case something happens to Gordon, Unser could suffer the consequences. Unser tries on the inside.
Oh, little twitch there from Robbie Gordon. I think he may have him as they come out onto 6.
We'll see now. He's really chasing them very, very closely. Now he makes a move, but Gordon shuts the door.
Gordon's got to keep his eye on his own mirrors. Look how close Junior is. And there he does it. Makes his move on 6.
Now, can he keep it? Can he make it stick? No, sir, not yet. And now they're all 3 of them are coming up, right up to Braden. And behind Unser Jr. is Boisel, keeping a safe distance.
I think we just had a big crack of lightning right behind us, so it's definitely going to be a big downpour any moment now. And they haven't run half the distance yet, still only at 44 laps.
Look at all that congestion. Mario gets past Braden. Now it's Robbie Gordon's turn. He tries on the inside, tries on the outside, no space.
And this part of the track that they're going to now, the southwest corner, this is where it started to rain.
There's Gordon finally making the pass.
Around turn 2.
And now Boisel has caught up to Unser, with Braden serving as a barrier.
Turn 3.
And now you can see that not only is the camera glass already covered with moisture, even the track is already covered in that part. That's the back part of the track.
Around turn 5. Clip the edging here for turn 6. Here comes Paul Tracy, and I think he is coming in for wet weather tires.
Even the pits are a little bit slick, so everybody's getting wet, and unfortunately the only ones not prepared for it are the spectators. There's the overhead view. There you see on the right-hand side on the bottom of your screen, middle bottom, that's Roger Penske, team owner.
Taking on more fuel. This, of course, will slow down the overall pace of the race as Paul Tracy gets out in 11.2 seconds. And by slowing down the pace of the race, could solve all the fuel problems for everyone.
Now the question is,
Alonso Jr. has passed Robbie Gordon.
Did he take fuel? I don't remember. I don't think
he took fuel.
He took some, but it was an extremely short stop, so he did not take a fuel load.
Well, it wasn't, of course, completely empty. It was only about half empty because they just recently stopped 10 laps ago. Al Boesel coming up on Robbie Gordon now too. There's Teo Fabi, who's off. Once you hit that grass, once it's been raining like this, and it rained yesterday for a while, it's like hitting glass.
There's no coming back. Unser Jr. followed by Tracy now, followed by Gordon.
Tracy on the wet weather tires. The other guys are on the slicks still. Tracy has to really get some heat into those tires, but doesn't want to get them too hot because the slicks get hot quicker. The groove tires get hot quicker.
Meanwhile, it's Emerson Fittipaldi that's holding out, working his way through the part of the track that's really the wettest. Nigel Mansell a full 13 seconds behind Fittipaldi. So he's actually gained a little bit of ground on him.
Paul Tracy, so far the only guy to have made a pit stop to change to the wet weather tires. Let's see if Emerson pulls in this time. Doesn't look like he's going to. Someone else ducked off into the pit lane though. As now Emerson goes past Olivier Griard. And there is Mike Groff. You can see the vortexes coming off the rear wing there.
As Fittipaldi leaves behind Griard.
I think when this rain does come down, it's going to, although I mean, it's coming down now, drizzling, but I think it's going to come down in a big way.
Now on the inside, trying to pass and overtaking Alonso Jr. is Emerson Fittipaldi right in that part of the track. That's right now the slickest.
Through turn 2. Teo Fabi, who we saw off, unfortunately, earlier, suffering terribly from blisters this weekend following the 24 hours of Le Mans, where he, of course, finished second. But after 24 hours of changing, you end up getting nasty blisters.
Look at the speed on that last lap. Only 100 miles an hour. That's about 160 kilometers per hour. Obviously, everybody's slowing down. You can now see the rain coming down in that back part. And now comes this is Mario, I'm sorry, with the red top there. Number 6 is Mario Andretti making his stop, getting new tires.
Refueling. Yeah, now you can see the rain really coming down.
All the umbrellas pop open in the grandstands, all the available ones. Mario goes back after 13.5 seconds, a full 2 seconds slower.
Danny Sullivan making his pit stop. Emerson Fittipaldi going to make his pit stop too, as does Mike Groff and Marco Greco.
So now everybody has concluded that it's really not safe out on the track. Fuel is being loaded. Tires are being changed. Let's see how long it takes. This Penske team took about 11.5 seconds with Tracy. Oh my. Less than 11 for Fittipaldi. Great stop. He must be very happy. Mike Groff right behind him, exiting pit lane. And here comes the tricky part with those new tires.
Johnny Unser still running out there, doing a good job in his first ever IndyCar race.
Here's the view from Nigel Mansell. Now you can see the level of precipitation coming down here now.
Did you hear that rev there? That's the little wheel spin he's getting. There you go. Twitch, he's the only, well, not the only guy, but he is out on slicks still. Who will more than likely come in this time round.
And we probably have a better view of the track than actually Nigel himself does with all the rain.
And you can hear him not getting full throttle at all.
He's passing right now Ross Bentley, lapping him. Also Lynn St. James is slowing down dramatically. Lynn St. James might have a problem.
Nigel coming into turn 7 behind Roberto Guerrero. Turn 8. Oh, Guerrero's off into the runoff area and into the guardrail.
And his afternoon's over. No question about it.
Nigel stays out even after those twitches and not being able to get it to full throttle.
And ironically, Guerrero has to slip right at the spot where he had the problem on Friday. Right in the very same spot where Braden hit him very strongly and crushed his number 1 car. So the backup is gone. Guerrero's gone. He becomes the 5th driver out of this race, with Lynn St. James slowing down dramatically, maybe to pick up tires.
Now you may see Nigel Mansell start to drive what they call the dry line. And that'll be on the outside. Instead of hitting the apexes, where everybody's been rubbing and running all weekend long, drive on the dry line, and what happens is the marbles that would normally be marbles and cause slip on slick tires in dry weather, in the wet weather, they actually kind of work as a grip. So you may see him start taking to the outside line, unless he pulls in this time to go for the wet weather tires.
Absolutely. No, he decides not to make the stop in this lap. And to give you an idea, the effect of rain, Nigel Mansell's typical lap here is about 61, 62 seconds. His last lap was 74 seconds with slick tires. And there goes a truck about to chase Roberto Guerrero's car. Still
able to overtake Danny Sullivan, who is on the slicks, on the wet weathers, pardon me. Here's Mansell coming up behind Guerrero. Guerrero just goes shooting off. I think it looked like something broke. Of course, once he's hit that grass, there's nothing he can do. I think something snapped and broke on his car, because you can see him going on that grass. He didn't even attempt to swing it around sideways. So Nigel Mansell doing the lion's share of the work out there on slicks.
So he's gambled, and so far he's winning. Up front after 50 laps, or about halfway through this race, the IndyCar Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 in Portland, Oregon.
Nigel completing his next lap. Amazing thing is, this will be lap 51. If what he's done here by gambling and staying out, he's got the lead, and if they call this race after 51 laps because the rain gets too tough, then he will inherit the win.
And Emerson Fittipaldi is about 10 seconds behind Mansell after that pit stop. Must be thinking, how can I make up this deficit? And now Mansell's coming into the part of the track that's very slick. He's got to be very careful. Extremely so.
And you really can't tell from these TV pictures just how hard it is raining, but it is chucking it down right now.
Well, the rain has certainly changed the complexion of this race. Mansell out in front, still on slick tyres, and you can see him slithering around and trying to maintain control of this 2.65 litre turbocharged engine in these sort of conditions. 700 to 750 brake horsepower under the control of his right foot, and with the turbo lag as well. Not an easy task at all on slick tyres. But Robin, he's obviously taking a bit of a gamble here to stay on slick tyres. So far it's working, but what do you think of the prospects for the rest of the race?
Well, he's doing a fantastic job. Incidentally, I think when he went off, I'm sure it wasn't a driving mistake, and I'm sure there's nothing wrong with his car, but if you notice, he took a very tight line going into the chicane, as if trying to protect his position from the pass by Emerson, and perhaps he got caught on the famous marbles and locked up the rear wheels.
He's decided that slick tyres are not going to work any longer. The rain just coming down too hard. Mansell into the pits then, so he now loses the lead which he'd been holding on to so well, struggling around with slick tyres. It was obviously a gamble to try and stay out, but it looks as though he's had to call it a day with the slick tyres and to go for the wets. We just see Fittipaldi going past him as he's in the pits, so Fittipaldi now retakes the lead. We haven't quite seen where Tracy is, so we think Tracy holding on to second place. There's Mansell with the wet tyres fitted, and out of the pits he goes. So not able to hold with the slicks. There in fact is Tracy just going past him, and he's just in behind Rahal. Now that's interesting. So Rahal is now moved up a position ahead of Tracy, and Mansell rejoining just behind them, Robin.
Yes, as I'm sure you appreciate, one of the reasons for Mansell staying out, besides the fact that he was going pretty quickly, was the fact that if he could stay out, he got the lead by not going into the pits. If after half distance the officials thought the weather was too bad, then they'd call the race off and he would have won by virtue of staying out. But clearly it got too bad.
Well, obviously the conditions bad, but not so bad that the officials deciding to call it off. So we now have Fittipaldi, Rahal getting this. I think he's still on slick, so he's struggling around a bit at the moment. Fittipaldi leading, will rejoin in just a few minutes.
Eurosport Live.
Well, welcome back to this exciting Portland race. We're looking at Paul Tracy at the moment. He's on wet tyres, as are most of the leaders now, as he slithers his way around. There's some debris on the circuit, and we're not quite sure who that's from yet. There's Scott Goodyear just going past. Paul Tracy there again, and he's got the attentions of Bobby Rahal still in behind him. And it looks to us as though Rahal's still on slick tyres. Doesn't look like Rahal's made his stop yet, so he's obviously gambling that this rain is going to stop soon and the track is going to dry out. Well, I don't know if that's going to work, but he's holding on there gamely at the moment, using all his experience to stay on the circuit in these very, very tricky conditions. But Fittipaldi it is out in front as Tracy comes up to try and find a way past Mike Groff. Groff in the Indy Lights machine, the Rahal Hogan, which went so well in qualifying, with Goodyear just ahead of him. So there is Tracy. second place, as we said, Rahal third. So Mansell, after that pit stop, has now got into fourth, with Al Unser Jr. fifth, and then Andretti in sixth position. So Mansell losing a fair bit of time, obviously, with that pit stop. That's dropped him back down the order, back down into fourth place. And, well, Robin, it's Bobby Rahal who's being a bit of a hero at the moment, staying out there on slick tyres by the look of things.
Yes, I mean, he's going for broke, because it's the only way, really, he's got a chance of winning if the rain easing off, or than calling the race and doing a tremendous job to get up to third place.
That's Willie T. Ribbs receiving a stop-and-go penalty there. So he goes back out and onto the circuit once again. Willie T. Ribbs qualifying very, very well indeed. He qualified 13th. Good performance for him in a year-old car, and in fact was the lead car of the Walker Motorsports team on the grid for this particular event. So with a look from on board with Bobby Rahal as the rain continues to come down, let's rejoin our American team.
Who apparently has only made one pit stop. There you can see the rain really coming down.
And the spectators stand up and watch. It's been like this all weekend long. Not only have these grandstands been full, they've been full of people standing up watching every little event happening here in Portland. Another record crowd over this weekend.
It's a great city and a great event they put on here as part of the Rose Festival in Portland. This downtown skyline and setting is just absolutely gorgeous. As I mentioned, you can see Mount Hood beautifully. You can't see it today because of the overcast, and right here where Bobby Rahal is about to come back out onto turn 6 after this left and a quick right. Nigel Mansell said it was kind of distracting when he first got here because it was such a gorgeous day and so lovely. He kept looking at Mount Hood instead of paying attention to what he was doing down the straightaway.
There's the leader. That's Emerson Fittipaldi once again up in the lead. Very, very careful around that festival set of turns. He's very conservative also as he approaches the curves. And now it's the overview look of Bobby Rahal's pit crew. The last one to pit. Here he comes to change tires.
I can't believe he ran that long on slicks. But he did a great job out there in slicks because he was currently third.
And that actually might make a very interesting stop. He's on lap 57.
Oh, there's Scott Goodyear, who's had a rotten weekend. He's overrun the chicane. He's paying a 7-second penalty. They'll hold him there, then they just let him back out on the track. Looks like the left front has done some damage. Oh, the right rear. Right rear is
he's out. He's gone.
He ran over that debris, I bet.
And he's got 3 kilometers to go on that one before he can get back to pit lane through a lot of traffic, a lot of pressure.
And that's what made me think the left front was messed up, because by the right rear being down, it's lifting the left front off the ground. You see, look, it's not even making contact with the ground, and that's why he overshot the chicane, because he had no turn on the car because the left front wasn't even touching the ground. And of course, the left front will be doing all the work as you go into a right-hand turn. Tough weekend for Scott Goodyear. He didn't qualify well, although he did do pretty well this morning in the warm-up. But this weekend, they just been chasing the setup all weekend long. They haven't scored as many points as they would have liked this year. They've been quick, but just not consistent.
And you've also known about the troubles he's had in his backing. As we see Ari Leyendijk coming into the pits, and this is an unscheduled stop.
His is the complete opposite. He's got the left rear is flat, which is lifting the right front. So there must be some debris out there that these guys are running over. There he slides beautifully into his allocated pit. They're going to leave the fronts on, just change that rear, send it back out again.
And no fuel. No fuel for Leyendijk. The fuel man was about to put some fuel into the car, and another assistant just basically waved him off. As he comes back into the track through traffic, there's
you see more debris there too. Right in the middle of the track, just going into the chicane.
And now you can clearly see the reflection of these cars in that concrete. Gives you an idea how wet this track is getting. That's Scott Goodyear getting back into it. And I was saying about Goodyear, he's had trouble now with his backing. Jim O'Donnell, who used to be the head of McKenzie Financial Group, has been removed by the board of directors. And one of the things they're looking at is his involvement with auto racing. And that might not be there for Scott Goodyear next year. Oh, there's Gordon making a pass, and there's the debris. There's a piece of a wing there that's very sharp and sticking right out of the ground. And that might be the cause for all these punctures.
You know what they may do? They may put out a full course caution and give the safety crews time to go out and pick up all the debris that is out there and then go green flag racing again.
Right now, Fittipaldi, here you see the what's left of that nose, and it's sharply angled. Anybody that steps over it gets a flat tire for sure. As you see, Brian Till being overtaken and lapped by leader Emerson Fittipaldi, who's ahead by 22 2/3 seconds, and Mansell is a full half minute behind Fittipaldi.
Getting some slide. With this moisture, what they try and do, they definitely try and run now in the wet line to keep these tires cool. But to start racing for a long time on the wet tires, you need to keep them moist so they'll cool off, and you really have to start searching for the water to get them in.
But it's not easy to follow that wet line with all this traffic. Still about 24, 23 cars on track, and they're spread out all over this track.
Emmo putting on a great show today. He is currently 4th in the championship points with 51 points after 6 starts.
As he comes around and laps Danny Sullivan. So Danny Sullivan, who was in 9th position, is lapped. That means there are 8 cars, Boisel being the next one in Fittipaldi's view. There you see it's Jim Swinthal with that blue and yellow flag advising the car to let go.
Telling Johnny Unser right there
and
to let Nigel by.
Lyondike loses it again, tries to get back into the track. So far, so good. Finally gets some traction back into the track. What a day, what an afternoon for Arie Lyondike.
There's our leader, Emerson Fittipaldi. He's got his family and kids here this weekend. Right behind him, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell, Alanson Jr., Bobby Rahal in 5th, Mario Andretti in 6th, and we are over the halfway mark of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 at Portland International Raceway.
Fittipaldi, of course, being followed closely by a TV crew from TV Manchette in Brazil. He's got the concession for IndyCar races down there, so he controls the broadcast, something that Nigel Mansell joked he wished he could do in the UK.
Oh, I don't think he was joking. I think he just missed the gun on that one.
Look at that reflection over the concrete as he goes around turn 12, going into the left, what's left of that straightaway, into turn 1.
It's really getting slick in turn 1 and turn 2. The water is gathering there due to the lay of the land.
But if there's any good news to be said at this point, is that the skies coming out of the west are clearing up ever so slightly. I think we're still going to get some rain, but it might not be as strong as we've had before.
Well, with 61 laps complete, we got 41 to go. The track, if it does stop raining, the track will dry out again, and then it'll be interesting to see if they can find a wet line to keep the tires cool, or who will come in and put on the slick tires.
There's a view from Nigel Mansell's car. He's a full half minute behind Fittipaldi, 6 seconds behind Paul Tracy. Mansell in 3rd at this point. Behind Mansell, another half minute behind Mansell is Alonso Jr. And so on and so forth. Rahal still in that lead lap, but only 6 or 7 cars in the lead lap at this point. As we see the back of Bobby Rahal's car, right behind him you see David Cottrave. That same car that Cottrave is driving is the one that Andrea Montermini took to a 4th place finish in Detroit. And it's the very same car that Rahal drove here last year. And Danny Sullivan looks to be in trouble. He's in the grass, I believe.
He's going to get a restart, though. He cleaned off his mirrors. He's going to try and get bumped.
Can't push you on the track, Daniel.
The problem for Sullivan at this point is they can push him, but they have to wait till the track is somewhat clear.
Yeah, they're telling him that they can't push him on the track. They're going to try and push him on the grass, but they're not going to get enough speed up, I think, to allow him to jump it, or bump it at least.
Meanwhile, Fittipaldi on the backside, looking at Mount Hood at this point, going around that long, curvy straightaway into the last few turns, piling on the lead, piling on the meters. Oh, Robbie Gordon also spins right where Sullivan did before.
But did he keep the engine running? Yes, he did. All right, that's the crucial part. 2 feet in when you spin. Got to get your left foot in on that clutch, keep that engine running, and he's going to try and find his way back on the track. He will, of course, lose some positions.
But that's where that off-road experience really pays off for Robbie Gordon. Back into the track, having lost a couple of positions.
Good job by Robbie Gordon keeping the engine running there.
Boycell now is chasing Lindike. As they both come into the turn.
That's not a fight for position.
And there's still that piece of debris. And there you go.
It's off. That piece that we saw is not off his car, but he is missing a piece.
So as if the weekend hasn't been complicated enough, now a lot of cars have lost pieces of their front wings.
They're missing the end plate on the left front. Caused some handling problems. Of course, these cars are all set up to handle in the dry anyway, so they're all having handling problems as far as that is concerned with the rain, because they're not set up for a rain package. They can adjust them a little bit as each time they make a pit stop. They'll be adjusting the brakes now. They can do that from inside the cockpit. Adjust the brake, get more brake at the front or more at the back. This, of course, has solved all the fuel consumption problems.
Boycell goes into the straightaway very conservatively, away from the wall, with that front end plate, left end plate, away from his car. He comes across the straightaway. Behind him is Lindike. But Sadia is his Brazilian sponsor, and he needs every little one of them to continue racing. It's amazing what he's done as an underdog team. As you can see, the track is, if anything, beginning to dry out a little bit, as we see now the view from Mansell going around that festival turn.
Once again on board. We lost our in-car cameras for a little while there because with the weather, the helicopters can't stay up. And the signal doesn't get to the helicopter from the car, but now we've got it back again as the weather is beginning to clear up. It is still raining, but not raining as hard as it was. Nigel being very gentle. This is a real case of having a great touch with your foot, very soft, ease gently onto the throttle. That's where Danny Sullivan went off, and we see that he is no longer there, so he's obviously back out on track. They obviously got him restarted, and in fact they did, and he's just come around past us to complete his lap.
Well, we mentioned to you at the beginning.
Well, as we watch from on board Nigel Mansell, the conditions still looking pretty damp, as you can see. Mansell correcting a slide there. And, well, the prospect possibly of it drying out a little bit. But we are getting now also, Robin, towards the time that the second round of fuel stops should occur.
Sure. Obviously, quite a few of the top cars put their second lot of fuel in, part of their second lot of fuel in, when they change the tyres. So instead of being a pit stop at 68 laps, it'll be something like 85 laps. Now, it was interesting, the American commentator said something, which probably right, saying this would reduce the overall fuel consumption. But funny enough, once in Mid-Ohio in 90, with the Porsche engine car, we actually had a situation where although we were going slower and using less fuel per minute, we were also running longer. And the overall consequence was we actually use more fuel. Now, I don't think this will be the case in this instance, but we shouldn't automatically assume that it's going to take away the fuel consumption problem.
Right, well, we just had a shot there of Willie T. Ribbs without front wings, so I should think he's suffering a fair bit of understeer from that car at the moment. There's a shot of Mike Groff in the Rahal Hogan, having a fairly good run in this car, it has to be said. The car that, of course, Bobby Rahal had given up all hope with earlier on in the season after its rather poor performances at first. But they seem to have got the car going just that little bit better just when they've bought their two loaders. But nevertheless, Mike Groff, who's now into his fourth season of IndyCar racing, only 31 years old, he's never been in a fully competitive car in his IndyCar career to date, but a very, very competitive driver. He was the Indy Lights champion in 1989 and has a tremendous background of motor racing success. Groff now finally in a team that will do him justice, and no doubt will soon be out in the second of the Lolas if they decide that that is certainly the way to go. Oh, we've got another car off, and somebody you're familiar with there, Robin, Marco Greco.
Oh yes, obviously. Must have had a snag with the car there.
Well, looks like he stalled the engine on that one. There we've got a shot of Brian Till in the number 99 car, just behind Olivier Gouillard. Gouillard in the Eurosport car, and he is now in his third IndyCar event, with Brian Till just in behind him. Till, this is his first race of the season. He's done a couple of IndyCar seasons. He's started 9 races, in fact, last year, and raced a 1991 True Sport chassis. He's just trying to sneak his way past Gouillard, but Gouillard not having anything of it just at the moment. In fact, Till won the Toyota Atlantic Eastern Championship back in 1990, then went on to Indy Lights. He'd also raced Barber Saab Series before that. He was the winner of the first ever Barber Saab race back in 1986. So a man with a good pedigree and a good background in the sport. And so Brian Till trying to find a way past Olivier Gouillard, the man with a Formula One experience, who was in the Tyrrell last year, of course.
Interesting to see the two Chevy cars in front, although Nigel's only 6 seconds behind Tracy, and as it dries out, well capable of taking care of that. But 30 seconds behind Emma, I don't see him taking care of that without some catastrophe. I hope this induces Cosworth to put a lot of effort into their Indy engine and take it off the Formula One and help us.
Well, we shall see. We'll be returning with this race in just a moment.
5,
Right, well, you rejoin us here after 66 laps. There's the story. Our leader is Emerson Fittipaldi. He's been 3 leaders so far, but Fittipaldi is the man out in front at the moment. Our retirements include Jeff Wood, Mark Smith, Kevin Cogan, Stefan Johansson, unfortunately, Theo Fabi and Roberto Guerrero, who we saw crash out of the race after a fairly heavy impact against the barrier. So there we can see Mansell currently in 3rd position, just trying to find his way past some slower cars, including Danny Sullivan just in front of him. Paul Tracy not far ahead, so the battle is certainly on for this 2nd position. But Mansell there in 3rd has got some work to do, particularly trying to find a way past the back markers, and particularly in these sort of conditions, the visibility much reduced, of course, once he gets behind the other cars, and that is obviously slowing him down a little bit and allowing Tracy to get away in front. Mansell, though, certainly seems to have adapted to IndyCar racing very, very well. Of course, the Americans have certainly taken to him. And Robin, I think that the team as well, the Newman Haas team, has certainly seemed to be enjoying working with him as well.
Yes, they get on very well, genuinely. It's not just for publicity. There's a very good relationship, a very happy one. And of course, Nigel was there with his family this weekend. There's grass paddocks and trees for the children to play in, and he's very happy in the whole environment. I wonder if we'll see him back. I wonder if he'll want to come back. And of course, there's a little bit of rivalry between him and Emma. Emma's 2-time world champion. Nigel is 1-time world champion, and Nigel's getting all the publicity, and I'm sure Emma, back of his mind, is intent to see him showing just who is number 1.
Well, we had a quick shot then of Brian Till just being bumped started again after a spin, presumably. There we have a good view of Danny Sullivan. We had a lot of this view in the last race at Detroit when Sullivan led for such a long time to take the win there in Detroit. Now we're back with Mansell in that 3rd position, chasing after Paul Tracy. Bazell there still in with a shout, but Raul Bazell will be disappointed with his qualifying. He qualified in 9th position. In fact, the same place he qualified at Detroit. He ended up finishing 2nd at Detroit, but whether he can pull off the same feat here, I'm not so sure. 70 laps completed then. There's Alonso Jr. Bazell now up into 7th place. Gordon down to 8th after that earlier spin. And so still some way to go. We've got 32 laps to go still of this race. So Fittipaldi, a fair old time out in front to try and keep his advantage over teammate Paul Tracy and Nigel Mansell in 3rd position. This race last year was the first win for the Ford Cosworth engine with Michael Andretti at the wheel. And it certainly looks at the moment as though it's going to be the Chevrolet which is going to take the win on this occasion. But of course, an awful lot can happen. There is Fittipaldi, our race leader, just coming up behind Mike Groff. And this certainly is going to be... and Fittipaldi snapping sideways there. That was the same place we saw Mansell get a little bit tweaked up as well. And you can just see how tricky it is. The conditions are certainly not easy. And I think we're going to have a very interesting race all the way to the flag, because all these guys are going to have to concentrate 110% to stay on the island. So there we see Fittipaldi trying to find his way past the slower cars. Still with Tracy in second place at the moment. Mansell holding on to third position. We shall rejoin our team in America to keep us abreast of the situation.
Now first at last lap, very slow once again.
I think the rain has finally stopped.
The sun is actually peeking through the clouds we're trying to. The umbrellas are still on. There's still a little bit of drizzle, but this track is going to start getting dry. Perhaps we might see a dry...
Dave Kudrave going off.
Just letting off traffic. With about 30 laps to go, we might just see drying conditions before the end of this race.
You know what these guys are going to hope for? The rain has stopped. We're on lap 72. They're probably going to hope that they can do about 10 more laps before stopping for fuel, and during that 10 laps that the track will dry out, and at the same time as stopping for fuel, they'll be able to put on the slick tires and not have to make another a forced second stop.
So the fickle finger of Portland, Oregon weather is dictating this race. Emerson Fittipaldi up front, Tracy Mansell follow him in the podium so far. Unser Rahal, 2 solid runs, 4th and 5th. Mario Andretti also solid in 6th place after 73 laps have been completed.
You can see it is beginning to clear up, although that doesn't stick to stand with what I just said, but it is actually beginning to clear up. And they're going to try and get this track. They probably wish at this point there was more cars running so that the track would dry out quicker as they all run the same line.
So as we see Mansell trying to overtake Johnny Unser once again, we must be wondering what the pit crews are thinking right now. That decision you were just telling about in about 10 laps or so when they have to stop for fuel, just about. Will they go for slicks? Will they stay on wet tires?
Well, if it doesn't rain anymore, I think they will stick out there for 10 more laps and then go for the slicks. As we saw, Nigel and Bobby Rahal both went for a very long time on the slicks.
David Kudrave has recovered. He's back on track. Kudrave right now is in the 23rd position, as we now took a quick look at Sullivan, and now we look on what Nigel Mansell has to see in front of him. I believe the sweeper in that camera is not working.
I think we're out of fresh rip-offs. It's just the same as the drivers have. They have a rip-off on their visor. They have a number of them, but of course they soon run out. On board with Bobby Rahal, you can see some places it is beginning to dry out.
And there's a definite dry line, although there are some wet spots still on the sides, and they have to be very careful on that.
This back stretch seems to be very dry.
It was also the first part of the track that got wet.
Down to 5th. The racing line is definitely beginning to dry out. Through turn 9, there you can see the Goodyear Tower. The front stretch is still pretty wet.
And it's ironic, Guy, that they had so much trouble trying to get a line and trying to get a setup to this car, and all of a sudden the rain throws all those plans out the window as we see the front straightaway. There's Mike Groff making that pass.
And you can also see that there's a lot less spray coming off, no rooster tails anymore. So at lap 75, they're due to stop in the mid-80s, having had the schedule all messed up from the rain. So I think we're going to see these guys probably just stay out there on these wet weather tires. They'll start searching for water is what they'll do. You'll see them look for puddles to try and keep the tires cool.
There you saw Tracy in 2nd place, Nigel Mansell coming up in 3rd. The difference between Tracy and Fittipaldi, 33 seconds. Mansell is about 5 seconds behind Tracy, and that's good news for Nigel Mansell and the Newman Haas team. He does have a chance to catch up to young Paul Tracy.
Our speeds are picking up too now. The last lap time for Emerson was 77 seconds, minute 7 seconds, a minute 17 seconds rather.
And now it's Emo's turn to go through traffic as he goes right around, trying to get around Lynn St. James. being very careful on the inside, and of course putting on the power.
I'm surprised we saw Robbie Gordon go off, of course, currently running 8th, but I thought he'd probably be really good here in the rain, but wasn't able to improve his position. Of course, we're talking about the world's best here between Fittipaldi and Mansell and Rahal, and one guy that really helped himself during that rain session, Alonso Jr., who managed to move up to 4th. It is really beginning to clear up.
So that sets up an exciting last 25 laps to this race. We'll see what happens. But so far, it's Fittipaldi dominating by half a minute. That's his lead over Tracy. Mansell very close on the heels of Tracy already, just a couple of seconds behind him.
It's amazing, even with this rain and with Guerrero wrecking and Fabi wrecking, and well, those are 2 main wrecks, but even with those 2 wrecks, we haven't had 1 yellow flag. Just not a full course yellow flag. We've had a couple of local caution flags, and that's what everybody talked about all weekend, that this was going to be a big fuel race because it's a flat-out race.
And we've even had debris on the track, and it hasn't stopped the race.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, whether they will. There'll be some talk about that afterwards, maybe, as to why they should have just maybe gone full course yellow, cleared off all that debris. You can see, I mean, 1, 2, 3 bits just in that turn.
It's interesting, that turn, which is already a slow turn, that the way that debris position is making these drivers extra careful in the rain. I'm not sure they mind that too much.
Well, the unfortunate thing too, it's offline, but that's where a lot of the overtaking is being done, and the slower cars having to move over, and they're moving over. They don't want to move over too far because they're going to get all that debris.
And all that under rainy skies in Portland, but it's cleared up. And actually, I believe the look out west looks pretty positive. Looks like the sky is indeed clearing up. We should not get more rain here for the rest of the afternoon.
Great view as they come out onto 6. Big backstretch there.
So after 77 laps, Fittipaldi, Tracy, and Mansell are the only cars in the lead lap. Unser, Rahal, and Andretti are lapped, as well as the rest of the field. Boisel right now in 7th, and then Gordon in 8th. And then after that, Robbie Groff is in 9th place. He's the first one to be lapped twice, as Fittipaldi tries to put another lap on Olivier Grouillard, and does.
Without too much effort.
Grouillard, one of 2 owner drivers, the other one being Bobby Rahal, part of that Regency team that he's being helped by Antonio Ferrari and the Euro Motorsports team.
Well, it's Eurosport, not Euro Motorsports, but Eurosport, Marlboro, and Regency Racing team. And they're all rookies, every single one of them involved in the team. No IndyCar experience between them. They're learning quickly. They've got a few ex-IMSA people in here. Learning very quickly how to get involved in the IndyCar scene and how to score points in the IndyCar series. See the vortexes there coming off the rear wing.
Bouncing off that backside. That backside is the bumpiest part of the track, also the one with the most debris, of course, prior to all these front wings being clipped out and strewn all over the track. That's where you had the biggest size marbles when we had a chance to go around the track, courtesy of the PPG pace cars.
Emerson Fittipaldi so far this year has led 71 laps in all the events he's running, and is now going to be looking to lead more laps than anybody else so far this season.
I think it's been a combination of the experience he had last year, being satisfied with second place, thinking he would have a chance to pass, and not being able to do so, plus the knowledge that it would be a rain race, and that was a very smart move on his part, and he keeps adding to that lead. It's over 34 seconds right now.
He also has one victory already in the bag this season, of course that one being the big one, the Indianapolis 500.
And the next race of the season is in Cleveland, which is where he won last year at Burke Airport, another race that we will show on ESPN International. These are the tires that are being prepared for the Marlboro team, and they're slick.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to come out on slicks because they'll only have 20 odd laps, 22 laps to go. The track is drying out. And we saw how long Rahal and Mansell were able to go on their slicks. It's going to be a real strategy. It'll be a case of the first guy in and see what he does, and then everybody else may follow suit.
Paul Tracy is in second. He's going to be watching, of course, and listening because he belongs to the same team as Fittipaldi. Although he can't listen to Emo, he will have it.
Well, there we're looking at Paul Tracy currently in second position. Robin, it really is hotting up to be quite exciting once we get into this final round of pit stops, which will be coming up fairly soon now. Obviously, it's settled down in position at the moment, but what tyres are they going to go for, and who's going to get the best pit stops? That's really got to be the key.
Absolutely. I imagine that preponderance will go for slicks, even though in certain parts of the circuit it's very wet. But it is a gamble. It's how quickly the track dries up. As I said, there's not too much high-class racing takes place on this track, and therefore people don't know how quickly the track dries out. But you can see, round about here, which is a corner, as you can see, the track is relatively dry, and the bits where it's really wet seem to be more on the straight. If people stay or change to wet tyres and it does dry out, the tyres will go to pieces and very quickly in a few laps, and they'll have to come in and go to slick. If they go to slick, then they'll take the risk of running a few laps in very perilous conditions until the track comes to a dry situation. Generally, as a rule of thumb, you find that if the lap time is about 10 seconds slower than you do in the dry, then you should run slick rather than wet. Obviously, the men will have an idea of exactly what lap time they're doing.
It's certainly going to be quite a test for the drivers. The pressure is going to be on. They're going to be into the latter stages of the race, and if they do switch to slick tyres, of course they'll be unfamiliar with the amount of grip that they're going to have on each part of the circuit. It really is going to be down to pure driver feel and talent to a large extent in those laps when they first go out on slicks, and it could be very, very exciting indeed, I think. So that's what we've got to look forward to. Make sure you stay with us here on Eurosport. You rejoin us here on Eurosport as we reach the climax of this Portland race. There is Nigel Mansell currently in third place on wets, as you can see. The track is certainly drying up on line, and the pits are being made ready for their final fuel stop and their final change of tyres. And the question is, are they going to go on to slick tyres for the final 18 laps? We've got around 18 laps to go now. Are they going to go on to slicks, or are they going to stay with wets? Well, Robin, you've been in this position before. What do you reckon?
I've been in this position far too often. Usually the driver knows best, and you can pass the buck and tell him to make the decision. They're in radio communication with the pits. They generally do know best, and they'll make up their mind themselves. I suspect we'll see them going on the slick.
Well, the pits are certainly being made ready. We saw during the break that several of the pit crews getting prepared for this final round of stops, and this really is going to be the way that the race is decided, I think, on just how well the final pit stops go on the choice. And here we go. Here we start off the final round of pit stops with Paul Tracy, our second place man, and he is the first to come into the pits. Now, are they going to go on to slick tyres? There's 17 laps remaining now, and is it going to be slick tyres, or are they going to stay on wets? The fuel goes on board. This is the final load of fuel. It looks like there's no tyre change. It looks like Tracy is going to stay on wet tyres. So the initial decision has been made by the Penske team, and Paul Tracy, oh, he stalled it, has he? Yes. Well, they've managed to get it going again, but that would have lost him just a little bit of time. But he has decided to stay on wet, so obviously he feels that it's still wet enough at the moment that slicks would lose him time. And he's certainly the man with the pressure on him, because he was only around 5 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell when he went into the pit lane. Now here's our leader, race leader, Emerson Fittipaldi. He's out there on wets at the moment. He will be making his final stop in just a little while, probably at the end of this next lap. We'll rejoin the American team to find out.
more seconds, he's going to be lapping everybody in this field. And there's a definite dry line right now.
It'll be interesting to see whether these guys go to slicks. We know that Paul Tracy did not. Here comes Nigel Mansell.
And the big decision. He's right now in second place after Tracy pitted.
I think personally Nigel will change.
Yep, they're ready.
There you see the slicks. All right, crew goes to work. 6 men over the wall. Change all 4 tires. Add on fuel. 40 gallons. Should take about 16 seconds. That'll be it. He will have used up his 115 gallons allotted for race day. Quick stop. 14 seconds. Great job for the Newman Haas team. And Nigel Mansell. You can hear him not getting much grip on the way out of pit lane. And he's going to have to get in that racing line and stay on that dry line.
As Matsushita and Greco lap cars come by, and there, of course, is, guess who? Emerson Fittipaldi.
This is going to make it very tough for Nigel because his tires are cold. Emo's going to go by him right now fairly easily, but Emo, of course, still has to stop. But the deal is, with Mansell on the slicks, he's got to stay on that dry line. He's going to make overtaking slower cars very hard because he's going to pull off into the wet, which can be a real shocker.
And of course, that will, if he doesn't do that, they will keep accusing him of blocking. So, damned if you do, damned if you don't for Nigel Mansell at this point. All this while trying to stay in second.
Nigel currently sitting atop the championship with 72 points. Emerson will pick up a point for leading the most laps today. I think now you're going to start seeing a rash of pit stops. I think they're all going to go. I'm surprised about Paul Tracy. We could see Mansell catch Tracy over the next few laps.
As Emo tries to overtake Iro Matsushita coming into the festival set of turns. Matsushita awfully close. He might go over that wing.
Nigel very precariously through the chicane. So he's got a lot of work to do. He's just gone a lap down. Here's Ray Hall. He's the other guy that ran for a long time on slicks, and he is going to go back on the slicks. Emo will obviously go back on slicks, I think. When he comes in for his stop, there's Robbie Gordon getting back out on the way. And now Nigel is a lap down to Emo. Whoa, Robbie Gordon got a piece of paper blown up in his face as he exited pit lane right across his visor.
I think it was his visor, and it's still caught in the, or no, it is a piece of paper still caught in the wing.
Whoa, it looked like it came out of his cockpit. Maybe it was a rag, I think, that he had in the, from his previous pit stop. He had a rag put in the cockpit, which he probably had tucked down underneath his leg or something, and he was using it to wipe his visor on the backstretch. And sure enough, it came up. Luckily, it happened in pit lane, not going into some turn. So now you see that Nigel is definitely making up ground on Emo.
Remember that Emo has lapped him once with a pit stop to make.
Nigel would like to unlap himself before Emerson makes his pit stop.
We've got 88 laps, and we're coming through that promised window that Fittipaldi said lap 89 or 90 will be the lap he comes in to change. And there's a lot of expectation in the Marlboro Penske.
Nigel's going to get by Emerson as they go onto the backstretch. He may have to step out into the slippery line to do it. But then he's still going to be almost a full lap as far as on track is concerned.
And those are slicks
behind Nigel.
That you just saw. Those are slick tires for Emo. As Emo blocks, weaves, bobs, doesn't let him through. And should be coming in, maybe not this lap, but next. Oh, I think he's
coming in right now.
Coming in.
Okay, now Nigel's got to floor it and get as far back around as he can by the time Emo makes his pit stop.
And Emo has to be careful, of course, not to exceed that limit of 128 kilometers per hour in the pits.
Coming in carefully and slowly. Still got a tear off left. Changing all 4. There's the aerial view. Taking on fuel. That's a quick stop. 11 seconds. So Nigel is now approximately in turn 3. approximate.
And now Emerson has to be careful coming in now. Very careful with these tires. No traffic around him. And he gets through. Skidding a little bit, of course. And Mario makes his pit stop. Wipes his visor. No change in tires for Mario.
Mario staying on the wet weather tires, as we saw Paul Tracy did earlier too. We know Ray Hall has changed, Fittipaldi has changed, and now the guys that are running on the wet tires, as they come down the main straightaway here, they're sticking right to the pit lane wall where there's water to try and keep those tires cool. We saw a yellow flag being displayed at the chicane there, and that is for Lynn St. James.
Indeed.
That's not at the chicane. That's a little further on from the chicane, or the festival curves as they are called this year.
Well, Mansell tried, but it didn't really work that much. His lead, Fittipaldi's lead, really has, if anything, increased somewhat. As we come back into the lane, here comes Mike Groff into pit lane. Fittipaldi streaks by through the front stretch.
Nigel about turn 4 right now. So a lot of ground to make up.
And now we're about to see the differentials between these cars as he makes his way through turn 12 into turn 1. He's chasing now Danny Sullivan, passing him, lapping him once again. Sullivan right now in 16th place, being behind 6 laps, a full 6 laps behind Fittipaldi.
As Emerson Fittipaldi goes around turn 4 into turn 5, second place man Paul Tracy, who is a lap down now, or no longer a lap down, is on the main straightaway on pit lane.
It's the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 miles, 320 kilometers, and Scott Braden might not be able to finish his race. Slowing down to almost a crawl.
If he leaves it there, they are going to have to bring out a safety vehicle, which will tow him back, but it still won't give us a full course. I was hoping it was going to give us a full course yellow, but it won't.
Interestingly enough, of course, Tracy 29 seconds behind Fittipaldi. Mansell in 3rd place, only 2 seconds behind Tracy. So there's you see Mansell now chase Mario Andretti.
Mario let him go because Mario knows that he's fighting for a 3rd place finish, possibly 2nd place finish.
And now Mansell's going to go chase after Paul Tracy, trying to get that 2nd position at this point with only 11 laps to go. Jimmy Vasser, Arie Luyendyk, Nigel Mansell.
There you see Tracy. Watch him run on the right-hand side of the track, the left-hand side of the screen. He's trying to find water to put on those tires.
Well, he rejoined at an exciting time as Mansell there getting pushed out onto the grass. And Robin, that proved a little bit exciting. We got a full course yellow by the looks of things.
Yeah, it's slightly unnecessary piece of obstacle driving by the driver ahead of Mansell.
Well, a full course yellow, so that means, of course, the pace car out. The cars will have to line up behind the pace car. Now, presumably, this is because of Scott Brayton's car. We saw it breaking down, and here we have a little rerun of what happened there. And there was a bit of battle going on. There's Jimmy Vasser just in front of him there. Jimmy Vasser going through the left. In fact, he just got on the wet stuff, and, well, difficult to say there. I mean, Vasser was trying to stay on the dry line. You can't blame the guy for doing that in a way. And Mansell just squeezed onto the wet stuff and on slicks, of course. That meant he had no grip whatsoever. So, as we see Hiro Matsushita out of the race, that's fairly unusual, actually. Matsushita is right up at the... he's only 2nd in number of laps completed this year. He's completed more laps than almost anybody. Now, who's this? Paul Tracy, who looked like he dropped down to 3rd behind Mansell. Tracy into the pits. It looks like they're going to have to go for the slick tyres. Tracy obviously not proving competitive on the wet, so they've had to make an extra change. We'll rejoin with the final few laps of this race in just a moment. Welcome back to the final 9 laps of this 7th round of the series. The championship hotting up nicely. It's Emerson Fittipaldi who leads at the moment as the cars are led around under a full course yellow. The pace car still out, recovering the car of Scott Brayton. Now you can just see down the queue here is Nigel Mansell, just behind Mario Andretti, his teammate, in fact. And there is Paul Tracy, the man in third position. Tracy's just been in to go onto slick tyres. So it's been an extra stop that's dropped him further back, but he did it under a yellow flag, so that has meant he hasn't lost as much time as he would have done if they'd been under green. So Mansell is going to have to watch his mirrors. There's only 2 cars, in fact, in between Mansell and Tracy as they follow the pace car around. So we could have an excellent battle there for second and third place. There we see, with 93 laps completed, Fittipaldi ahead of Mansell, Tracy and Rahal. Looking a little bit further down the order, Raul Boesel in 7th, so he's still got quite a lot of ground to make up.
Yes, the shootout has been set up again by means of the pace car. Genuinely, I think it's fair to say. It's going to be very interesting. I think there are sufficient cars between Mansell and Emo to make it very difficult for him. The interesting dice, I think, may well be between Tracy and Mansell. How much influence and what influence Fittipaldi will have in this, not Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti will have in this is interesting to see, because he's could well hinder Tracy in his attempt to get ahead of Mansell.
Well, Mansell's certainly got a lot of cars in between him and the race leader to try and work his way through. As you say, I think that's going to be a little too tall a task. You can see how well the track has dried out now and why Paul Tracy was losing so much time on those wet tyres. And really, the line itself is almost completely dry. You can see it very, very clearly there indeed. It will make overtaking these slower cars, these back markers that are all in between them, that much more difficult, because of course they get off line onto that wet and slippery stuff while they're trying to get past the slower cars, and they could, well, have a moment or go off, and it's going to certainly make things very tricky for these last few laps. So Fittipaldi, Mansell and Tracy all on the lead lap, and the battle is certainly going to be on for that second position between Mansell and Tracy.
I think he's given the sign they're going to go very shortly.
So the pace car, yes, it looks like there's going to be one more lap behind the pace car. Signal being shown to the guys behind. Fittipaldi there, just weaving around a little bit to try and build up some heat.
The sign that he's showing is 1 lap, by the way. If you're confused.
So Fittipaldi certainly keen to try and take the win here today. If Fittipaldi manages to get maximum points, that'll put him on 71 points. But he's still going to end up a little bit behind Mansell. Mansell, if he carries on in second place, will be on 87 points with another healthy lead in the championship. Boesel not scoring very well at the moment. He's down in 7th. So that will see Boesel on 74 points. So it does close things up a little bit more towards the top end of the table. And Fittipaldi, I think, is really the one we have to watch, Robin, in many ways, as Mansell's main opposition for the championship.
Yes, the team is first class. Emo's drive today has been immensely skillful, full of character and extremely intelligent. I mean, a typical Fittipaldi performance. And it's a great comparison between the two. They're very different and both magnificent drivers.
Absolutely, and it really is shaping up to be an excellent series and an excellent championship, but we've still got an excellent few laps to go, I'm sure, because we've still got 6 laps remaining. So let's rejoin our American team so they can take us through the final stages of this Portland IndyCar race.
They're getting around.
Oh, Emo's probably gone at this point. As soon as that pace car slightly pulls off, Emo's going to disappear.
Oh, there's a little bit of traffic there with Leyendijk and Rahal. There's not a lot of space. It's going to be a wild scramble as they get into that straightaway. We'll see how close they get to that wall. Pace car should be getting into the pits.
Right about now, it's in the pits. Emo has disappeared.
Yes, he's flying. There's Jim Swinthal with a green. There's 6 laps to go. And Raul Boesel, which is a lap car, is chasing Emo. And there's Mansell on the outside.
He's got past Mario. He's going to get past, I think that's Ross Bentley. Now he's behind Leyendijk. So he's got 6 more cars to get past. 6 laps to do it. And then, of course, he's got to make up the gap. Okay, they're past Rahal, Leyendijk.
Look at that move by Mansell.
Oh, Olivier Griard went straight on at the chicane.
Can he do it at this point? Mansell's going right up the ranks.
He's also putting a cushion between himself and poor Tracy. Probably wishes that Lyondike didn't go with him. On board now with Bobby Rahal, who is currently lying in 4th position.
That's exactly what he wants to be. Only 5 points behind Mansell at the end of this race. With only 6 laps to go, really 5 as they come around this backside.
Ooh, up into 6th gear. They tear down the backstretch. They are back up to about 185 miles an hour now. Lap times are back down to the 60s. Mansell getting held up a little bit by Johnny Unser,
but passing him. Meanwhile, Fittipaldi has probably, you see him with Boisel right behind him, has about a
quarter mile,
15 second lead over the next bunch, about a 20-second lead over Mansell.
Tracy is 3 cars behind Nigel Mansell. Bobby Rahal is ahead of Tracy on the track, but is actually behind him in position. He's a lap down.
And unfortunately now for Nigel Mansell, these cars in front of him won't let him go that easily.
Well, these are the quicker cars too. He's behind Scott Goodyear, Arie Luyendyk, and Robbie Gordon.
There's Paul Tracy, who himself is making moves. Now he's chasing Mario Andretti. This will be interesting. Of course, the Penske, and behind him is Unser, who tries to make a move. What a sandwich. It's called a Tracy sandwich. Mario on the one side, Al Unser on the other.
Al Unser and Mario are racing.
They certainly are for position. They're looking, Unser's trying to rob Andretti his 5th spot. As we see number 5, red 5, Nigel Mansell in 2nd. 9 seconds behind Fittipaldi. Tracy 2 seconds behind Mansell.
Mansell is not going to be able to make up that kind of difference with only 4 laps remaining, unless Emo makes some kind of big mistake.
There you see the gap, 9.17 seconds between 1st and 2nd place in this race, with only 4 laps to go.
You can see how dry it is out there now. Sun shining brightly. Nigel, I should think, would be happy with the 2nd place finish. He's going to keep him out there in the championships.
And of course, he had that point for the pole position. Of course, Fittipaldi will gain a point for most laps led.
Yeah, Emo has 52, including the point for the most laps led. Nigel has 72, including the point for scoring the pole position.
As we see now, Paul Tracy in 3rd, 14.71 seconds behind Fittipaldi, a full 5 seconds behind Mansell. There's Fittipaldi up front. Only 3 laps to go, and he's being chased by countryman Raul Boisel, who in essence really is 2 laps down. Fittipaldi has lapped him twice already. What a race for Emerson Fittipaldi. He's got a clear track, and there's Tatiana looking over the action, actually awaiting her dad, her father, who will be coming in with his 2nd win of the season.
This will really tighten up the championship if they finish like this. If they do finish like this, Emerson Fittipaldi will have 71 points. Raul Boesel will have 74. Nigel Mansell will have 87. Bobby Rahal will have 58. Mario Andretti will have 67. And Paul Tracy will have 40. And Emo gets the gas on down the main straightaway. Underneath the starter's bridge.
And also a solid race for Bobby Rahal and Al Unser Jr., who stay somewhere near the leadership position. There's Mansell trying to overtake Luyendyk. Luyendyk doesn't live in the line. He cuts on the inside. Finally, Luyendyk leaves him some room. Oh, he slides very aggressively.
Just got on that a little bit of water.
These cars can double up as hydroplanes on a little bit of water. Comes around the back. There's only 2 laps to go for Emerson Fittipaldi to win his 2nd race of the season.
Certainly make a lot of people very happy here, including his team boss, Roger Penske.
Looking for his 3rd win to tie the Newman Haas team with another 3 wins. Mansell and Tracy, their gap is 4 1/3 seconds. Tracy, of course, he won in Long Beach, but since then, his best finish has been in 9th place in Detroit. This would be another podium for young Paul Tracy. There he goes, and of course, the white flag is up and down. Fittipaldi, less than 3 kilometers to go to notch his 2nd win this season, and would move him up in the points to only 16 points behind Nigel Mansell.
Clear road ahead of him. Just got to be careful. Make sure you don't put a foot over the line. He's got a pretty healthy 10-second lead, of course, which he is well aware of. He's got plenty of fuel. Bosell and Gordon, of course,
fighting for 7th and 7th spot. Boiselle in 7th. Gordon trying to get that spot from him. As the track now, that backside of the track, which is the most humid part of the track, is now almost all cleared up, at least in that driving line.
And here's Emerson coming around to take the last turn, turn 9.
8.
Start to hear the crowd react as they get up on their feet, wave those Brazilian flags and cheer him
And there
on.
goes Emerson Fittipaldi, and James Swinthal waves the checkered flag, and the fist pumps for another win for the Penske Marlboro team.
Mansell finishing 2nd. Tracy 3rd. Bobby Rahal 4th. Alonso Jr. was able to get by Mario Andretti right on that last lap. So Junior ends up finishing 5th. Emerson waves to the fans.
The celebration, of course, already anticipated, now ongoing, as Emerson Fittipaldi wins his 2nd of the season and gets ready in 2 weeks' time to defend the race, the championship of that race he won last year at Burke Airport in Cleveland.
There you see the pit crew all congratulating each other on their fine work. That last pit stop obviously was very quick, with just 10 seconds to change all 4 and add some more fuel. Got Emo out in front of the crowd before that pace car picked him up.
But Emo really putting some space. That cushion, that 30-second cushion that he had throughout most of the race, was critical in winning. There's Roger Penske saluting and congratulating everybody in his team.
Kevin Diamond, that guy that just walked across the screen, is the PR man for Emerson Fittipaldi, as we see the victory circle being assembled on the track. I hope there's no other cars left to come round. Rounding out the top 10, Emerson Fittipaldi with the win. Nigel Mansell 2nd. Paul Tracy is 3rd. Bobby Rahal is 4th. He'll be very happy with that. Al Unser Jr. finishing 5th, managing to get past Mario Andretti on the last lap, who is 6th. Raul Bosell is 7th. Robbie Gordon is 8th. Mike Groff is 9th. And Arie Luyendyk rounds out the top 10.
And of course, when all the points are awarded at the end of this race, Nigel Mansell should have 88, still in 1st place. In 2nd place, you'll find Raul Boiselle, but instead of a 4-point difference, you'll find a 14-point difference. In 3rd, charging hard, is Emerson Fittipaldi, 72 points. Then next you will see Mario Andretti in 4th place, followed by Bobby Rahal in 5th, and then Al Unser Jr. moving up a spot to 6th, Arie Luyendyk dropping to 7th. So those are the seven top drivers. As Emerson Fittipaldi gets out of his car, there's Tatiana, and of course the requisite orange juice waiting for him.
He's going to give his little daughter a big hug. We sit next, our broadcast booth is right next to the Brazilian television's broadcast feed, and they're still going mad over there. Yeah, it's kind of risky.
The booth is rocking side to side. So the celebration will continue here in Portland. Another race, the 7th of 16 so far, and quite a race with rain. The first time we've had rain so far, and that certainly was a factor in the race.
It certainly did. It played a big role in the race, slowed down the pace of the race, so the fuel did not become a big problem. And then we saw some great pit stops by the Penske team where they got Emo out on the last one in 10 seconds. We saw a gamble by Paul Tracy where he stayed on the wet weather tires, but that yellow flag right at the end enabled him to come back in and make the pit stop. And of course that caution flag bunching up the field for the last dash to the cash with just 9 laps to go. But Nigel Mansell had too many other cars in between him and Emerson Fittipaldi to do anything about it. He made up some ground. Let's see what Emma has to say. He doesn't even look like he's been working out there.
But he had a...
Well, Robin, a superb win for Emerson Fittipaldi there to back up his win in the Indy 500. He really judged it beautifully well. He put the pressure on Mansell in the early stages of the race. Mansell made that little bit of a mistake, and he read the conditions of the race very, very well with those tricky wet conditions.
Yes, two decisive moments in the race. Inevitably the tyre change, and it was interesting that the two top teams, the Newman-Haas team and the Penske team, put one car on slicks and one on wet, and the two wet-tired cars lost positions. It put Tracy down from second to third and Mario down to sixth. That was decisive. The other decisive moment was the braking at the chicane problem for Mansell, very reminiscent of course, of Montreal last year in Formula One.
So certainly Mansell's just that little mistake on the brakes, which may well have cost him the race. That dropped him back a fair bit from Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi never made any mistakes from that point on to take his second win of the season, to match up the one he had in the Indy 500. And it's certainly looking like a good season for Fittipaldi. He won the championship, of course, back in 1989, and that year he also won the Indy 500 by a funny chance. Do you think that he's going to be able to carry this sort of form on, and is he going to be able to take the battle all the way to Mansell?
I think it's going to go all the way to the wire. I mean, obviously anything can happen, what one doesn't know. But I think there's a very good chance that this could well go to the end of the season.
Well, it was certainly an exciting race at the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. Rejoin us in 2 weeks' time for the Cleveland race here on Eurosport. From Robin and myself, goodbye.
People who know use Valvoline.